everyone for being here. It sounds like the session, I think, was it last night or Tuesday night? On marketing with Sammy from Rock USA seemed to have gone very well. So thanks to those that attended that. And it sounds like we've got a lot of really great sessions coming up as well. And tonight we have the esteemed pleasure of meeting a new partner to this work and a friend of a new rock conversion that we're working on in Richfield, Minnesota, Woodlawn Terrace. We're lucky to have Donna Kaiser and her husband Butch of the company HomeSource with us tonight to talk about Infill. And I think we do have Butch. Is Butch on the phone?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Excellent. So I'll just provide kind of some initial background of how we got connected with Donna and Butch at HomeSource, and then give them an opportunity to introduce themselves and their professional background. But we started working on a new resident-owned community project back in March of this year, and of this park in Richfield, Minnesota called Woodlawn Terrace. And I think that we have, do we have anyone from Woodlawn on the call tonight? I think we've got Bev. I see Bev. Bev Adrian is the interim board president at Woodlawn. And part of the Woodlawn project and the part of how the financing is going to work is predicated on bringing in a bunch of new homes. So the park is about half vacant. So they're licensed for about 60 lots, and they have 30 lots that are currently occupied. Those are rough numbers. And so this is the first time that we at NCF have ever done a deal where part of the lending package comes with an expectation that there's going to be an increase of homes, a physical occupancy, that we're going to bring homes in. And so early in the process, we were talking with the interim board members and sleuthing around for partners that might be able to help bring in new homes to the community. And Bev Adrian, the interim board president that I just mentioned, suggested, and she's like, well, I've got just the lady for you. And she sent me Donna's information at HomeSource. And she said, Donna sold me my home and she's great. And, I know she's got a good reputation. And I reached out to Donna, and the rest has kind of been history. So Donna and Butch and her shop have been really instrumental in the Woodlawn project. And I've learned a lot from them as we're getting closer to getting the project financed and coming up with the plan to bring in new homes. So we've learned so much just in the short time that we've known HomeSource, and they've been involved in this new co-op project, that we thought, hey, we should get them to meet some of our other resident-owned community leaders and share a little bit about what they know about the industry and about manufactured homes. And Lord knows everyone in all of our communities, across our communities, can share. If there's a few pain points that we all share, it's lots that go vacant that we can't fill. And there's all kinds of ways that our co-ops have kind of worked to fill those lots. And so we're all together on a perpetual journey to learn more about how we can fill vacant lots with homes. So that's the purpose. That's how we got here tonight to this conversation. The way that we're structuring the conversation tonight is I've got some structured questions for Donna and Butch to respond to. And then I want to leave plenty of time for questions from the audience. So we do want to make it participatory. We know that folks are coming with questions. This is a pain point across all of our communities that we work with. So let's get into it without any further delay. So to introduce yourselves, Donna and Butch, I wondered if you'd both answer a couple of questions here. So, give us you don't really need to give us your name. We know your names now, but how long you've been in the industry. So how long you've been working in this field, and how you got into it. So give us a little bit of background of how did you get into the work and how long you've been in it.
I better go first. I have been in the industry 21 years. and I started HomeSource back in 2014. I got into it. This is kind of crazy. I had a good friend that just told me he's used to sell mobile homes down in Arizona. He came up here and started selling mobile homes, and he thought I would be really good at it. And I thought, I thought he was crazy. I lived in a 1976 dump, I called it back then, because it was older. And mine was in really bad shape. That's why I called it that. And I just thought that's what all mobile homes looked like. And I thought, well, I don't think I really want to get involved in this. But I went with him one day and I started seeing the newer ones and how they've changed and how not all of them look like mine. and I just decided to, one day it came up, I decided to try it. And it's just been my niche, I guess. I fell right in and I love it.
Same question for you, Butch, although I think we can kind of assume how you got into it, but.
Well, I sold I drove truck for 23 years in the transportation industry, and I sold a trucking company to help around the house, because the work wasn't getting done around the house because neither one of us were home. And then Donna got so busy where, she needed some help. So she decided for me to help. And now that we take on the new homes too, she can't do both. So I just pretty much take on all the new home stuff and handle all that. So it's been about 5 years, I suppose. We've been doing it that way.
Okay. And Donna, describe a little bit about all the services that HomeSource provides. So what are the core things that you provide? Or your main lines of business, if that's a better way of describing it.
Sure. We list homes like realtors do. We'll go to the parks when people want to sell, they call us. We go out and we take down all the information. We put a sign in the window. We take pictures. We advertise on 3 different websites. The main thing is we are signed up to go through all the major mobile home lenders in the country. And so we can we bring customers that are financed that way, or we're able to help them get the financing. And then we've started selling new homes and bringing those into communities.
Excellent. And where do you work primarily? Where does HomeSource work, or where's your main service area to date?
Mainly south of the Twin Cities. We do have a few listings north, but we're one of the last dealers left south of the cities. So we end up getting most of the business there. Apple Valley, Lakeville, Farmington, Rosemont. Right now we have, just in the last week, we've listed 5 houses in a park in Jordan, which kind of surprised me. But we've got them all the way up to Lake Elmo. We've gone to St. Cloud, down to Red Wing, Clark's Grove, which is down by, I can't think of the name of the town.
Albert
Yeah,
Lee.
thank you. We go all over.
Excellent. So you mentioned a little bit, that there's very few home dealers left, at least in where HomeSource has kind of set up shop traditionally. So one of my questions is, because I think there's a lot to learn here, but you've been in the industry for a long time, and how has the industry changed since you got into it? And when I say the industry, I mean, how has the ownership landscape of manufactured housing changed? How has the actual manufactured home industry, the building industry and the sales industry changed over the period of time that you've been doing this work?
When I first started, it seemed like the lenders, it was easier to get loans, and it was a lot easier to get a loan. You could get a loan with a much lower credit score. Now it's a lot tougher. The parks are probably easier to get into too. Now they're quite a bit tougher to get into, I think. And it's just changed the whole, I don't know how to say it. Well, I'll just say it, and people hate this, but here's what I heard when I first started is trailer trash. It turned that into mobile home communities, and they are tougher to get into, or it's tougher to get a mobile home loan a lot of times than a real estate loan. And it's safer. I tell people it's safer to live in these communities because your background is checked, where if you buy any real estate, you don't know who lives next to you. The lot rents have certainly gone up a lot since I started. That's a big thing. The lot rents is as a lot of these communities have turned, or how do I say this? I'm sorry, I'm not used to being on a video. They've been bought out by greedy corporations, I call them. And I'm watching those parks go downhill pretty fast. A lot of them are starting to rent. A lot of these greedy corporations come in, they raise the lot rent 2 or 3 times. They start renting them out because they can't get the houses sold. And a lot of those parks I'm seeing go downhill, and that's kind of sad.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Butch?
I'd have to agree with her, with like the main one we work with, is still owned by the same man who opened it in 1972, and he's got his personal touch on it and kind of his baby. But when you start getting into the corporate side of things, you don't have that personality, that personal touch into it, and you start to lose that, and all they want is the money out of the lot. So they'll stuff anything into a hole, to get money out of it, and you lose your personal touch with the community, I think.
Sure. Thanks for that perspective. It's good we all kind of keep a pace on what's going on, but it's, it's good to hear the perspective of folks that are working and, across the spectrum of, we work almost exclusively with co-ops. So it's good to get that perspective from folks that are out in the rest of the communities, in the wider community landscape. I got a question about what builders you work with. What home builders do you work with? And my understanding is that it's pretty typical for a dealer to choose, 1 or 2 builders that they work with. So describe that a little bit, like who do you work with and why? What homes do you sell, new homes?
I would say, Schultz. We picked Schultz because they've always been the Cadillac of mobile homes, or that's what we've heard. They've always been good quality. And their service department has been really good to work with. And then recently we started ordering from Highland, and we haven't seen the houses yet from Highland. The first 2 are coming in about the next month or so. But both of them, have a good reputation. They've been around a lot of years, and I've heard that they seem to be better quality homes than a lot of the rest.
When you say better quality, what do you mean? Like what makes a new home good in y'all's opinion?
Well, they have, that's a good question. Sheetrocked walls. A lot of people now are looking for sheetrocked walls. And Butch might be able to answer that better.
It's okay. Well, I like the difference, I grew up in a mobile home, and of course it was 1970s and things like that, where you had the paneling and the metal on the outside and 2x2 walls or whatever they were. And now, with Schultz, when I worked on them, briefly with, I used to work for a park years ago, but when I'd work on a Highland or a Schultz, it just seemed like, it wasn't the same old genre. Well, now the new ones come with OSB on the inside of all the exterior walls as well as the outside. You get 2x8, floor joists. A lot of them are starting to come with not just 2x3, but also 2x4 interior walls and 1/2-inch sheetrock, and also sheetrock marriage lines. So it actually, when you're in there, it feels more like a home. When I went through the model the first time, when Donna started selling, started getting into the new ones, and tell you what, it wasn't the homes I grew up in. I know that. So it just made you feel like more like a home than and I think it's surprising, tile showers that aren't cracking, with the old mobile homes. If you did anything with tile, a lot of times when it moved in the spring or the fall, you get your cracking of the tiles. We don't get that because of the piers and everything they're on now. But I just think it's a better quality house. You're not seeing in the wintertime when we watch our model, you're not seeing a lot of the sheets of ice that used to hang off from heat loss in the roof. We don't get that with our model or anything anymore. So I think they've just got a better quality house. And even the people that we talked to that bought Friendships new, they're not impressed. Matter of fact, we've got a customer now who bought a Friendship new, and he told his brother moving across the street, and he told him to come to a Schultz. So because of the quality difference.
Interesting.
That's true.
All right. So you answered my other question, which was like, why do you work with these builders, right? And a lot of it is to do with, actually the lived experience of the end homeowner, right? So you're bringing in a home and seeing the difference of it performing over time, right? So it's not just because of the building standards or the changes in how the homes are built. Although Butch you mentioned some of those. I'm always just curious about, like, there's no real standard or guide for consumers. It's always like really strange to me that there's not any real standardization for consumers to say, okay, well, this home has this and this and that and that, and what do I get between these different options? It really is reliant on the discretion of the dealer that you're working with, and having that kind of, in the know knowledge of knowing someone that's placing homes, which I think is one of the values of working through a reputable dealer, right? A dealer with a track record that has, good relationships and has good referrals.
That's true.
Got a couple of questions in the chat here that are related to this, so let's go ahead and ask them. So Natividad asked a question: how long is it taking to get a new home in with COVID and price hikes? What's the typical time frame you're seeing for new homes between ordering and when they're available?
I would say of an average of probably 3 to 5 months. Sometimes 6 to 7, depending on, during the shutdown, it was really tough. But
Yeah.
right now, I would say between 3 and 5. Okay.
And another question from all of our questions are from Natividad. No surprise, Natividad. What does, and this gets to one of my questions here that I have on kind of like y'all's background. But the question is, what is included in the, I'm assuming this is related to, and shake your head yes if I'm getting this right, Natividad, but you're asking like what's included, right? In what is HomeSource responsible for versus what is the property owner responsible for? What do you handle as far as cost versus what the property owner handles as far as cost? And I already know some of this because I asked some of these questions yesterday about Woodlawn. But I'll go ahead and give that question up to you, Donna and Butch.
What do you think, hon? You want it or you want me to take it?
You can.
All right. Well, what we usually cover is we cover the house, the skirting, the hookups to the sewer, the hookups to the electrical, the hookups to the gas line. A lot of times in the ones we're working on now, we dig in a new gas line from the meter to the house, so we know the gas line's good. It includes a shed. If we're able to put one on the park we're working in now, we're able to put in 10 by 12 sheds. That might change up in Richfield because of the area, how close everything is. But, the park is responsible for mainly, like the piers we pay for, but they got to crown the lot after that. Up here, we got to have a crown on it that lets the water run more than 10 feet, at least 10 feet away from the house. So they would be responsible for updating any electrical meters that are, in the ground that are too old or not sufficient. Crowning the lots, getting rid of the dirt and trimming trees, all the excess stuff that would need to be moved out of the way as far as the lot goes, but everything else comes on to us as far as the costs go.
What's the standard amperage on a pedestal now? What's the new standard for a new home?
It depends. Some of the homes come standard 200 amp. The park we actually are working in now, we have to get them downgraded to 100 because they don't have 200 amp service to their meters. So it's cheaper just for, you get a little bit of a credit, but it's easier for us to downgrade to 100 amp. It means, you got to use like a gas stove or something like that instead of a all electric.
And when you say downgrade, you mean the actual home itself? You bring the home down to where it's...
Yeah, you drop it from a 200 amp service to a 100 amp service.
Okay.
I don't mean downgrade the house, but you're just downgrading the amperage allowed.
Right. Yeah, and you mentioned the going to a gas stove as opposed to an electric. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. And a gas furnace, instead of an electric furnace.
How would one of our co-ops know what amperage they had available to them.
Ooh, that would be something you'd have to talk to your electrical company about. Ours, the park knew, but Dakota Electric is the one who does all their work. So that would be something that, your main electric company should know what goes from the main box to your pedestal.
Sure. So they'll know so that's an important thing to know.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And then when you're ordering houses, you got to make sure. We had one come in where they didn't downgrade it. I hate to say that, but where they didn't drop it from 200 to 100, which isn't a huge deal. But, my electrician went out there and he's like, you got a 200 amp house here. So the factory sent out all the stuff to change it over and handled it that way. But so it's not a huge deal, but you also got to know that when you're ordering in the houses too.
Right. Okay. Good to know. Good question here. What is the definition of crowning?
It's for the center of your lot. Like the highways, when they put in a highway, the center of the highway is the highest, so the water runs off. That's what you're calling your crown. You're crowning the lot, so the water will run from the center. Hopefully you never have the problem under the house, but if you do, it'll run away from the house instead of sit underneath there.
Okay.
And it alerts the homeowner too that there's a problem, rather than not being able to tell because how many people crawl underneath their house on a monthly basis,
Right. Okay. I'm going to see if I missed any questions here. We'll get to your interest rate question on the financing end and to that. Okay. All right. So this is, I think, where you get to maybe brag about yourselves a little bit, Donna and Butch. But if you want to, I've certainly learned the benefits of working through a manufactured home dealer. I know our co-ops have worked with dealers in the past. Some have, gotten limited dealers license of their own accord, right? And purchased homes, and there's all kinds of strategies. But what's the benefit? What would you say is the benefit to working with a licensed dealer?
I would say we do everything from beginning to end. From when we list a home, like if somebody in the park wants to sell, we come out and do everything for them. We help. When we list the house, I kind of mentioned that earlier, and then we advertise on 3 different websites, and we get buyers, we get them pre-approved, we bring them to see the houses. We also work with them to get their W-2s gathered up, their paycheck stubs. We do the whole thing, turn it into the lender. We order the appraisals. We work with the counties to make sure that there's no back taxes, to get the letter we need to transfer the title. We help the new owners get approved to the community. If they don't get approved to the community, they aren't able to buy the house. We do the closings. We just pretty much do the whole thing from beginning to end. But that's a big part of it.
And also too, it's our business. So we're up on the latest stuff that we have to do continuing education. Twice a year we do continuing education on what's new and what's, it keeps you on the up to know, it's what we do for a job. So it's kind of one of those deals where if somebody doesn't do it for a job, they they might not know, like a tax guy, he has to stay up on all the tax laws. Somebody who does their own taxes might not know all the new laws, but because he does it for a living, he's required, you have to stay up on all the latest stuff that's coming down the pipeline.
I also imagine that it's a really great resource for the end buyer too. That you have someone that you've worked with from beginning to end that you can call if you've got a question
or even a problem with the house, anything at all. We've never abandoned anybody. We're standing right by them all the time. So.
Sure. Got a good question here in the chat. Do you help a seller, and Pat, I assume you mean a seller of a home, someone that owns a home, their existing home, and to clean and stage the home?
We have. We've helped them. We've helped people, I guess not so much stage. We would, or we could, but mainly we've helped a lot of people clean houses out. A lot of people call us and say, well, somebody passed away, or that's kind of different probably than what you just asked, but we've definitely cleaned out many homes like that. And we've helped people move. We kind of do it all.
Sounds like it. If a co-op wanted to work with a manufactured home dealer, what would you recommend that they're looking for in a partner, in a dealer partner, and what should they be looking out for to avoid? So what should they be looking for in the dealer to ensure that they've got a good partner? And what things have you seen that can maybe pose a stumbling block or some things to avoid?
I would say
Honesty.
Yes, that's the first thing.
Nope.
Yeah, someone who's honest, who has a good reputation. All the new homes that are coming in, they have a warranty. We've heard that many dealers don't go back and fulfill the warranty, even though it's the warranties through the factory, or the factory promises the warranty. We are responsible for most of the work unless it's something really serious. Then the factory will come and do it, but we're just responsible for that. If somebody is not going to honor their word and come back and fix anything, we hear about that quite a bit.
So folks would.
Yeah, and
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bush.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nope,
Sorry.
no,
I was
ahead.
just going to say the best way too is to talk to other parks in the area, about that dealer that you're possibly looking at, or, because reviews sometimes can be faked online, but if you're talking to the park and they're saying, hey, we have good dealings with these people, blah, 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 they're honest, all their paperwork's in when they bring in a new customer. And, another park will tell you how that dealer's acting and how they perform.
I think one thing that I am kind of mystified by, and being located where you are in the metro, there's certainly a stronger demand. I think some of our rural co-ops that we work with have struggled to find partners, have struggled to find a dealer that's willing to work with them, or so if a co-op is running into that type of scenario, what would you recommend if they can't seem to find someone that's what things might they do to attract a partner, right, to help them to bring in new homes?
What would you say, sweetheart?
I'm trying to think.
Well, the free lot rent, which helps, because while the house is sitting there, you're not being burdened, or we wouldn't be burdened. I'm just using us as an example, but we wouldn't be burdened with worrying about the lot rent while we're trying to get it sold and set up, and that kind of thing. That would, that helps a ton. Anything on your mind, hon?
No, that's a good one.
Yeah, any incentives like that you can attract in,
Yeah.
Because they're taking the expense on of bringing in the house and doing all the work, and giving them any break like that will help, or, things like that.
So Pat's asking a really good clarifying question here. And that is, how do you all get paid, right? This is great. You provide all these services, but how do you get paid on these deals?
On the listings, we just have a flat fee. So when we go to list a house, we find out about what they want for it. We add our commission on top of that. Or some of them don't know what their house is worth at all. And I'll say, well, I think this is what we can get for your house. And then this much of that is our commission. The new ones, we just have a Butch sets that more than I do, but we have I think it's more of a flat fee there too. He just puts in a profit, I guess. So the buyer pays
it all into the price. Yeah, it's all built into the price.
So the entity that's paying for that's paying for you to provide your services is the homeowner. So it's not the property owner in this case. The property owner is making sure that the site is ready, that the earth is crowned after the piers are, poured, that, as Butch said, the trees are trimmed, the utilities are ready for connection. But other than that, you're working, at least in the markets that you're working in, you're handling the rest.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Good question, Pat.
Oh God, excuse me.
All right. Some questions. I know people are going to ask that. And oh, well, really quick, all of that prep would be the cost of the co-op, and I think that Natividad is just clarifying that. Is that right, Natividad?
I think that's what she was asking, because every time we do a lot to bring a house in, that's at our cost, including the pedestal. So if we had to have some trees removed in order to fit a house, we had to add a new pedestal at 1,500, and we had to have the lot prep. So that's all cost to the co-op.
Right. And Donna just emailed me some numbers from Butch today, and I think it was like 1,500 to 1,800 to do the crowning, I think is what you, if I remember correctly, Donna, or something like that.
I think it was actually what you.
And what was
Go
that,
ahead.
sweetie?
You go ahead.
I was just saying it's 1,200 is of a park over here. I asked him on what they pay, and he said it was about $1,200. Any, old concrete, but then you got to get rid of the dirt pile from the piers too. This particular park has a place in the park that they put the dirt piles. So, because then they use for the residents, so.
Okay. So we're talking, 1,200 for the crowning work, the earthwork, let's call it. And if there was anything over and above that, so plus or minus $1,200 for the earthwork. If you got to install a new pedestal, that's 1,500 to 2,500, depending on where you are, for electric pedestal, and then any work that you need to do the utility connections. So I remember when I was working with Park Plaza, I think you were budgeting like $6,000 a lot, roughly.
Yep.
So I think that's a good kind of estimate for our co-op to use when they're thinking like, oh, we want to fill 5 lots. Well, 5 times 6, you want to have 30 grand that you can use to do your lot prep. And I see a good question from Pat. I'm going to ask a couple more of these. These are more like kind of tips and tricks questions. And I know I'm suspecting that folks are going to have this question, but is there still places to find used homes, pre-owned homes, and any tips on finding them?
You have to steal them from the other parks.
No. Nice.
Well, that's what a lot of people are doing, and the whole
We
time
don't
I've
agree
been
with that.
no, if we don't have to. The whole time I've been in the business, it was kind of an unwritten rule. The managers don't, or the owners, the parks don't steal from each other. Out of the blue, a few years ago, they all started doing it. They didn't care if they were taking one from the park next door. And I just thought that was awful. So we will go out of state. We get the bank, we get listings of foreclosed properties. We'll go out of state and take one out of that park, maybe somewhere we don't do a lot of business, or out of a field. We went and found one in South Dakota. It was in a farmer's field, and we brought that into the park. So we would rather do that than take them from one park to the other. But then again, we're kind of looking at it as, well, these parks call us a lot of the times because they know we leave them in the park. If we buy one in there, we're buying it to fix it up. We're not going to take it out. And I think, honestly, that's why we've gotten a lot of the business over the years that we've gotten, besides our happy faces.
Anything else on that point, Butch? Otherwise, I'll move on to my next question.
I mean, other than that would be, bank repos, bank repossession lists from other areas. But, we found those ones on
He is really cutting out.
We lost you there, Butch. We'll wait to see if you come back online here.
He's
So
on
you
Is it
said
any better now?
You said you left off at we find ours at.
Well, what?
We don't want people to know.
They're more on a bank repossession list. A bank will notify us that they've got one coming. Yeah.
And then and so that's interesting. I guess we hadn't talked about rehab of existing homes. So HomeSource also will do rehab.
Yep, a lot.
Can you hear me now, or?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Butch.
Oh, okay.
He's on Highway 19. I know right where he is.
So any
What's that?
top tips for finding vendors, finding, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, you name it, to work on homes? Because that is a huge pain point with all of our co-ops is fine. And we've talked about this, right? I'm asking questions that I've already had conversations with them about, but for the purpose of this conversation, any commiserating or tips or?
It's horrible. I'm just gonna say. I'll answer first. I know Butch will have something to say about this. When I first started, there were some pretty reputable companies out there that did a good job and didn't charge a whole lot. Now there's a couple out there that are left that, or one for sure, charges an arm and a leg and doesn't treat people very well. They have a bad reputation. So we don't want to call them. We used to work with a guy called the mobile home doctor. His name is Brian. And all these years we could always call him and he would come and work on the houses. Well, he got injured a few years ago. So he was off work for quite a while. All of a sudden he called us and he said, "Hey, I need some work. You guys got anything?" We're like, "Oh, thank God we have a huge waiting list for you," because we knew he has a good reputation. He didn't charge a lot. So he couldn't work full time, but Butch got a work truck and he went and picked Brian up when he couldn't even drive, took him to the job sites, and maybe Brian or Butch can tell you about this, but he was learning from Brian. We even hired other people and paid Brian to train them, trying to just get anybody to help our customers. There's hardly anybody out there that knows what they're doing. And if they do, they're just charging an arm and a leg. What do you think?
And if you do find one, you got to take care of them. I mean, in all honesty, we send them a gift card at Christmas, you know what I mean, to keep them, pay them right away. You can't believe how many times I hear somebody go, "I love doing work for you because you guys pay right away," and it sounds simple, but it's actually a big deal to them. So
That's true.
This got brought up with the NCF Board of Directors, this topic of lack of vendors. And I had one of my board members reach out to me and she's like, "There's got to be something that we can do to bring people into this sector." Because she lives in Northfield, Minnesota, and there's some privately owned parks in Northfield, and she's gotten the park owners reaching out to her, asking her whether she knows of, is there anyone that can help? They can't find anyone that's willing to work on the home. So this seems like a good common problem that we need to noodle on to solve, find some creative ways to solve this problem, because everyone struggles with it. Everybody.
Yep.
Finding good folks to work on manufactured homes.
Yep.
So that's not so much a solution as just like let's work together. Let's think creatively of how we can solve this. Some of the other questions, well, actually, this is a good time to ask Pat's question before I move into this other one. What determines whether you bring a home into a particular community, right? Like, what are you looking for? I guess that question is, what are you looking for in a community? Like, what's a good candidate? What are the factors involved in you saying, yeah, we could sell a new home here, or no, we'd have to find something pre-owned to bring in or to rehab? Like, what type of market factors are you considering? It's less, I think this is a question that's more pertinent for our co-ops that are in rural places, right? You're working in the metro, and so you've got a little bit more assurance that there's going to be strong demand. But in some of our more rural co-ops, the cost to purchase a new manufactured home, finance it, and the combination of the home payment, right, from that new home plus the lot rent isn't super competitive. Like, you could go buy a site-built home in the area, So in that case, we really need to get creative with like down payment assistance and better financing with longer terms to keep those payments, those monthly payments affordable. So any thoughts on what you're looking for and what's a good candidate for, or what conversations y'all are having when you're like, oh, well, we don't know. Have you ever run into a situation where you're like, I don't know if we're going to be able to sell homes in this community for whatever reason, and why would that be?
I would say if the community has a bad reputation, or probably most of those communities out there don't have a bad reputation. There's some in the cities that kind of do. If every house in there is a 1975 and we bring a brand new one in right now, especially with COVID when they're $100 and some $1,000, I don't know if that would sell in a park with older homes in it. I don't know. Normally we would bring a home into any park and try it. I'm a risk taker. I just find a way to get things done. That's how it was brought up.
Well, I'll be honest. I look at the community itself too. How is the community doing? Is it cleaned up? Is it, is it cleaned up? Is it, sorry, how the community looks is a big deal, because if you're getting someone who wants to pay, you're selling a house for $100,000 and the community looks, trashy, or, you got a bunch of stuff and stuff's crammed in the yards. We've had people pull into the parks and say, I will not buy a house in this park because of how the yards look, so that determines a lot, because we got to be able to attract a buyer to come in. And then on top of that, lot rents being low are a big benefit, because usually when you're outside the metro areas, the lot rents are a lot more manageable. But too, you got to look at, okay, what's the last house, that came in here that's new, can we sell one? And, like you said, it compares to a stick-built home at that point. Now, it might not be a brand new stick home. That's, we tell people that all the time. They're like, well, I can buy a house for this price. We ain't getting a brand new house for this price. So, a lot of that determines, when you're in that community looking around to decide if you're going to bring one in, that's kind of a big deal.
I love that you're willing to try. I love that. You mentioned that when you're listing a home, you list on 3 websites. What are those websites, Donna?
MH Village is a big one. It's kind of like the MLS for real estate. It's where anybody can go to advertise mobile homes. That's where I get a lot of the calls from, or emails. Craigslist, I put them on Craigslist, even though we don't get a whole lot from Craigslist, but it's free. So I figure you never know who you're gonna attract, Plus they have a huge area to write the ad in, so that's what I start there. And then we have our own website also. So it's HomeSource.com. So we put them on there also.
Excellent. Well, let's get into a couple of financing questions, and then we can open it up for some questions from everybody else. So the 2 questions that I had written down on financing were, what lenders do you typically work with? Which ones are you kind of certified through?
There are 3 major ones in the country, and we've been going through Triad. They are a broker out of Illinois that goes through little credit unions. They require a higher credit score a lot of times, but they have lower interest rates and less paperwork. There's also Bank West. That's a small bank out of South Dakota that a lot of people don't know about. It's not a mobile home lender. They just happen to have a mobile home program. So I found out about them, and then we've been going through them. They require 10% down, but they definitely have less paperwork, and they have lower interest rates too. I think maybe just because, like I said, they're a bank, not a mobile home lender. And then 21st Mortgage Corporation is out of Tennessee. They are the most lenient lender in the country. So they will help anybody as long as they have a larger down payment, even if they have bad credit. But they have higher interest rates a lot of times too. But those are the 3 main ones that are licensed in Minnesota. Then there's Credit Human, I know we talked about this recently, but they're pretty hard to get a hold of. And we just haven't done much with them yet. But every time I've talked to them, they've said, well, these are the ones that, you know, you already go through. Our programs are pretty similar or more strict than them.
Sure.
So we really haven't bothered.
And you mentioned Bank West, they have a 10% down requirement. You know, typical rates and terms, I know they vary between lenders, but in general, what are we talking with these for folks that haven't financed a home, who didn't initially finance their home or financed many years ago and have paid off their homes? Give us a snapshot of kind of typical rates and terms that are available now.
I've seen them from like 6.35% all the way to 14%. It just depends on people's credit scores. The higher your score is, the lower the interest rate is. And they will go out 20, well, two of the lenders will go out 23 years on a used home. I believe they all go out 25 years on a new home.
Okay.
And some go by they won't finance one that's over 20 years old. Some have a minimum loan requirement of 15,000 or 20,000. So they're all just a little bit different.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit to get to know all of them, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think one thing that I've appreciated, and I would just put this out there for our co-ops too, is that as we've been talking about the Woodlawn project in particular, you know, Donna and Butch, although Donna you do most of the financing side, Butch is handling the new home stuff, but I've appreciated that you're so open to working with us on working with other lenders and exploring other lending options. So, you know, I wouldn't accept at face value. You know, I think that there are like the big three lenders that people work with, but I think, you know, getting creative and trying to reach out to local credit unions. I know that's something that we're trying to do with the Woodlawn project to see if at the more local level, they're willing to, because there's a local commitment, you know, and interest in providing affordability to the local market. There's some creative ways that you can do to bring other lenders into the mix. And then I think the other thing that I would just lift up is we're getting some traction on getting down payment assistance programs. We had a call with the city of Richfield today, actually, about Woodlawn. And we're talking about down payment assistance program and getting access to that. So I think all of our co-ops should feel, you know, emboldened to reach out to their local HRAs, their housing and redevelopment authorities, and their city officials and ask the question, you know, like, hey, if we brought new homes in, you know, could we bring some down payment? Because a lot of places, CAP agencies, community action partnership agencies will have down payment. And sometimes you just need to ask the question. And say and explain who you are and that you're different, right? Because you're a co-op owned and you're a community, right? You're committed to keeping lot rents low. Sometimes that can go a really long way. So I would say, you know, don't ever take anything at face value. You know, it's always worth it to ask the question. I know we just keep asking and asking and asking and asking.
That's right.
And you'll be amazed if you just ask the question. You know, maybe you won't get a yes the first time, but maybe the second or third time you will. So that would be my little 2 cents that I would share on the financing front. And now we'll open it up to the group for questions. So you can either put it in the chat or you can raise your hand with the reactions in Ring Central. In this application, there's a little button that says reactions. You can raise your hand. You can physically raise your hand. You can just go on mute and say, I have a question. It's all fair game. I see one question in the chat here from Pat, which is, what do you think may happen with foreclosures following the end of the eviction moratorium? Are you tracking that at all? Do you have any folks that have reached out to you that you've sold homes to that are concerned about this?
And I was wondering too, how do you feel it will affect your business? If you have any ideas about that.
Well, it'll possibly give us a more used market, I guess, you know, not that you like to hear this about anybody, you know, losing their home, but but it might make the used market a little more accessible then, you know, as far as, so somebody, you know, because there's a lot of parks where we don't have a lot of used homes right now because people aren't moving around. So all we have is new in that park. Well, then you might have some used ones come up. And I don't know if they're just going to lift that moratorium. I guess we're kind of all waiting to, you know, to find out if they're just going to lift it and not give anybody a chance, or they're going to stage it out to where, okay, you know, you got so many months to get this much of it paid, or I don't know how they're going to work that yet. So I think we're kind of all just waiting to see.
Go ahead and sit on.
Got anything to
It's going in stages is how they're doing it. So at a certain period of time and so many days, we're doing our first eviction now. It goes to court next week. And just to get rid of the house, it's gonna eat us alive. But in the meantime, we've put 4 new homes in. We're using a broker, and they're all refurbished homes, and 3 of them were paid cash, including a $69,000 one. So we try
Nice.
and do that as much as possible because we offer an incentive program that if you purchase a home and bring it in before it gets here, we give you $3,000 for moving in, and you pay your first 6 months half rent. So their first 6 months is $264 a month. It gives a family a great start, and then they are able to, you know, buy furniture, whatever the case may be. And it's worked out really well for us. We have 3 lots left, and we just found out today, all in one day, we have 3 houses for sale all on the same day. So spring and fall for us is a move time because in the spring, everybody gets their taxes. In the fall, everybody's deciding to move before school. And so they've saved money the whole time they've lived here because our rent doesn't advance unless it's needed to. And they buy stick-built homes for a bigger space. So we have a waiting list. I've already made a couple of phone calls to get ready for the ones that are up for sale. We generally don't have an empty house that's not paying rent anymore since we started. So we figured out a few different ways to do this. I was always leery of brokers, but it got down to the fact that you got to do something to fill 10 lots, right? You can't have 10 empty lots. So we took our chance, and it's working pretty well at this time. But we're taking a break. We need a break, you know? So that's how it works. But we've also incorporated the prep cost into the actual sale of the house to manage to not have to pay all of it. We pay for the electric pedestals and anything else like that. And we paid for the tree removal, but the prep came out of the house sale.
Interesting.
So,
Yep.
Pat, you got a question? Oh, you're on mute.
Here I am. Okay, thank you. Along with the idea of foreclosures coming along, and a little bit to what Natividad was just saying about costs being added on to the home cost or whatever. For example, we have someone who will have to pay foreclosure or face foreclosure, and they have a very large lot rent debt. So if their house would be sold or something, have you ever seen it where that back rent is somehow attached to the home of the price of the home so that you're recouping some of that? Is that fair? Is that an equitable thing to do in business?
We do that all the time. I mean, especially on our listings. I don't know how it's gonna work with this whole
Right.
year of rent that some people haven't paid. I haven't seen that before. Well, I have. I've had managers, we will send something to the manager letting them know that we have the house listed. And can it stay in the park? We usually ask, does it need something to be done? Is there any back lot rent? And we actually have our sellers sign something saying that we're gonna take that right out of their check and we pay the park managers or the parks anything that's owed before they even get their check. Is that kind of what you meant?
Yeah. And if they are foreclosed and they decide they leave because they cannot pay their back rent and whatever, and we end up being stuck, so to speak, with that house and we need to resell it or whatever, I was thinking about, can we add, it would be thousands of dollars onto the price of their home to recoup that, so that, as Natividad said, we wouldn't be eaten alive by that condition.
I would think you could, as long as there are appraisal. I mean, if you called us in this scenario and we list the house,
Mhm.
and we say, well, it's worth, I'm just making up a number, 15,000, and they owe you 8,000, and we advertise, you know what I mean? We added all that together plus our commission and advertised it. It would just have to appraise for that is the thing. We'd either hope for a cash buyer, or it has to appraise for the amount that you're trying to get for it.
Right. So you wouldn't be overcharging and right. Okay. Thanks.
Natividad, you had your hand
Yeah.
raised?
Yeah, we also have the option for sheriff sale. And so all those fees get attached to the sale and then we recoup our money. And so we've done sheriff sale a few times. This particular home, most of our homes are owned, so there's no foreclosure. It's just the fact that they may or may not have been evicted. So they also have an option to say, well, can you forego or withhold a UD if I turn my home over to you? So we're able to do that. And then we have the option to offer up homes. I think 3 a year as a giveaway home with inside the policy, they have to do all the repairs and stuff. So we've done that as well. We've managed to recoup quite a bit of our money. This particular one, we will not be able to recoup that money because the house will not be able to sell. It's going to be condemned. So unfortunately, you do have that 1 or 2 times where a house is condemned. There's no way to recoup the money.
I
So,
didn't realize that was the situation. Sorry.
no, that's okay. These are options that are
Right.
happening in your communities that, you know, you got to find a way to not to be stuck with the house, right? You want to get rid of it as quickly as you can. But then that cost also comes back onto the co-op where you could be paying $6,000 to move a home and then do the cleanup, which is another $2,000-3,000 or whatever the case may be, plus your lost rent. And in the meantime, you also have to remember to cut off that rent from your management company to not charge it on a continuous basis. So this is where your write-off happens so that it stops at what is owed at this time, this second. So we did that today. So there's a lot of back stuff to save yourself from money. And so then we'll have a big, beautiful lot that will be available for a home next year. Not this year, but next year. And it's a quarter lot. So everybody would love this lot. So using HomeSource could be an option for us if we didn't know anything about it. I'm long-winded. We had a 21st century home in here. They were in the process of selling it to my son and his daughter, or his girlfriend. And when they were getting ready to sign their final papers, they pulled the house out and didn't tell them. So 21st century is a no way for us ever again. And their interest rate was extremely high, but they weren't told about it. We just happened to be here when it was happening. So they lost out on a really beautiful home.
Oh, that's horrible. There was sorry.
No, I was just going to ask, what was that? I missed part of that. What did 21st do?
They were selling a home to my son and his girlfriend. And when they were getting ready to sign their final papers, they pulled the house out on the day of that signing and did not tell them. So then they were out of the house.
I have never heard that.
Wow. I have never heard that either. Wow.
And why would they? It's sold. I mean, it's going to be sold. I don't understand why they would have even done something like that.
They owned it. They took it.
Yep.
So, and it just was a crooked deal. And so you don't learn these things until they happen. And it doesn't happen all the time. That's not to say that they're a bad group to work with. It's just they're not very nice in my book. Sorry.
No.
So
No, absolutely not.
I would love to hook up with HomeSource and see what you guys could offer up for Park Plaza Cooperative. You know, we managed to fill 4 empty lots, and we sell. Usually, our houses sell within a day to the first week because of the waiting list, and it's co-op, so it makes a big difference. So yeah, we would love to talk with you. That would be awesome.
That would be great.
Donna, I know that you all are, you're kind of focused in the metro area, and I've asked this question of you, but would you be willing to have a conversation with some of our co-ops that are in more rural markets and at least have an initial conversation about bringing new homes in?
Sure, we'll go anywhere. I'm
Okay.
actually looking into Wisconsin even right now, and Iowa.
Yeah. Yeah, we asked HomeSource to see about getting licensed in Wisconsin because we like them that much. There's quite a few other folks on the call. I'm wondering, I just want to provide an opportunity if there's Jan or Bobby or Carlton, Terry, Bev, anyone else have questions or thoughts on needs in their own community that they'd like to share or?
Yeah, I was actually, that's one of the questions, I'm Terry, that I was wondering about with the brokers in Wisconsin, because our community, they sell their own homes. And of course, I'm on the board, I'm the secretary, and I get all questions I can't answer all the time about when they're financing. So for me, that's really something, having a broker or something like that in my area that the homeowners could go to would be awesome. And we're in Wisconsin, we're in Kenosha, so we're pretty much down near the Illinois border.
Yeah, they're our farthest flung co-op. So thanks for joining us, Terry. It's good to have you with us.
It's good to be here. But this has really been a lot of good information, things I didn't know that I can bring back to the board too. So thank you.
Excellent.
I echo that
Thanks,
too. That's just good things for me to take back to our board. And we're on the Iowa border. We're way down south.
Whereabouts?
Yeah.
Fairmont.
Oh, I know where that is. Yep, down there. What is it, 4?
Pardon?
Is it 4 or 15? Is it 4 or 15 that goes through Fairmont there?
15 and 90.
Yep.
Yeah, Fairmont, Five Lakes has over 20 vacant lots, I want to say, Jan.
Well, we do have 2 that looks like are going to be coming in the near future. And then some of our lots are not big enough for like a double wide. So it would depend on the size of the home. Some of the lots are smaller. Currently, we have 2 lots. We are set up for RV rental to help bring us some income in. So they're kind of ready that they could be for homes also. But so I'm not quite sure of the number right now.
Five Lakes is a beautiful community.
It is a nice community.
It's right on the north edge of town, right behind Beantown, a great restaurant in the area.
Yeah. Five
Jobs
Lakes.
down there too, ain't there?
Pardon?
There's a pretty good job market down there right now, isn't there?
I'm not quite sure. I work for Sterling Drug and we are temporarily closed because we're remodeling. So I'm kind of out of work right now. But I think there is opportunities, yes. We have a Mayo Hospital, Mayo Clinic. There are various industries. So
Nice.
it is a good community.
Those are potential buyers, right?
Yes. I'll be bringing your information, Donna and Butch, back to the board next week.
That would be great.
Thank you for your presentation.
Sure. Thank you for putting up with the way we look. I look.
It's summertime.
That's true.
Any other questions from the?
I have one.
Go ahead, Judah.
Are you able to find smaller houses that are new, or do they have to be manufactured to size? Like we have 2 lots that are small, like even finding a used home for them right now is tough.
I
So they
figured
could
Butch-
What
be
was the
sitting empty
question on
for a while. Are you able to find, are you able to get smaller homes that are new? Or do they have to be manufactured to size because they're so small?
Well, what size are the lots? Because Woodlawn is one like that, don't you think, Tori?
Yeah.
They're small, they're teeny tiny lots, yeah.
Yeah, what happens is when you move a house we were built in 1960. So every time we move a house, we have to come to code. And that's when you find out what size you really can have here versus what size they put in here, right? So you lose space.
Yeah.
You either gain some or you really, really lose some. And right now, 2 of our lots, we lost some. So it's gonna be a tough crowd to find a couple of houses so small.
What's the length, Butch, I think on the units that we're talking on Woodlawn?
Well, I've seen some that are, it depends. On a double wide, I saw the smallest, and that's why I want to get up there and measure. It was either 28 or 24 by 38. So it's just a small little double wide, but otherwise the single wides are, the shortest single wide is 42 feet that we found so far.
Okay.
Was that new or used?
That's new.
Ew.
Okay, 42 feet.
42 feet, yes, ma'am.
Would that work in your community?
Well, we have the possibility of 2 very small double wides to fit
Oh, double.
sideways, but I want a second opinion just to be sure. I just want a second opinion. We'll leave it at that. It's best to
Yeah,
not say
no,
nothing.
the
if you
shortest
can't
double
say
wide,
anything. Yeah, it's
the
gonna be
shortest double wide I've found is a 38 footer. And that's just a little double wide, but you can still get your 2-3 bedrooms in it. So
These would be 2-bedroom.
yep.
I see Peggy at Panel Creek on the phone. Peggy, I know that you all have been doing some new home placement. Any thoughts or questions that you wanted to share or commiserate with the group?
Do we have another hour? To the last question, we've got a lot that's really small. It's a 12 by 60. And all of our homes, with the exception of one, are older. So we have just putting in a new home. I guess my worries would be because everything is older here. The insides are nice, but they are. We've got 63 to a 2005, which is the newest.
Nice.
Finding homes or going to a new home is just going to stick out like a sore thumb, and not sure we could, sell something that expensive. So yeah, we kind of have to stick to the older homes, just for to be able to resell them. A lot of the questions I get are, how old is it? People get married to the year, and I tell them that's just the shell, that's not the inside.
Right.
But yeah, it can be a deterrent for a lot of buyers. I get calls and asking, got anything for sale? And I try to leave that year to the very last. I try to, because right now I'm remodeling one that's a 1965.
Yeah.
And, we'll bring it up to, 2021 on the inside. The outside's not that bad, but it's, if you tell someone it's 1965, they're turned off automatically without even, looking at it. So that's a real problem for us. The other question I had is if we go to a credit union or a bank or something like that to finance a home, do the credit score, is that on the park, or do they need a personal guarantor? Is that credit score on somebody from the board, or do they look at it just as the park?
I mean, it depends. In this case, is it the co-op buying the home, or are you talking about the home buyer?
No, I would be talking about the co-op buying a home, financing, going through and financing, I guess.
To bring the home in initially, Peggy, or to?
Yeah. Yeah, to bring it in and then to resell it. But if we went to a credit union, bought the home, or wanting to buy the home, whose credit score do they look at?
Well, that would be a different type of loan, I think, because you're talking about being your own dealer, so to speak. So, you might want to get like a floor plan account type of a deal, or a credit account,
Oh, okay.
to where, where they'd want to see your financials and all that stuff. I know that's what we had to do, because we started out buying them cash through ours. And then when we started doing, new homes, then we had to go in and we had to show our financials. And so it wasn't, now we were the personal guarantors, of course, but I don't know how it would work on a co-op, but you would, they're going to want to see all the financials and see if they could do you'd be looking at a floor plan bank like 21st or Triad or something like that to do, we have our business bank that does it too. Just, they never did it before, but because they've seen our history, they do it now. Now we have a credit account, so to speak, through them, to buy houses too. So
that's what I had brought to our bank, and I wasn't able to give them all the information because we had a bookkeeper that wasn't staying on top of things. So, but that, and they had never done anything like that either. So now that we've got our financials in order, I want to take it to them and, see what we can do there, because, just the lot prep, finding the home first and trying to get to it before it's sold, to look at it, then finding a mover, then doing the lot prep, all of that takes time.
You bet.
And it's, a lot of times we can't get to the place before it's sold. So it's
and that's where a dealer can come in handy as well, because a dealer's on it all the time, so but that's another benefit of a dealer as well. So
and that's frustrating because we've had one, we went to see it and she sold it right in front of me. I mean, she didn't even give a chance. I was like, are you kidding? I called and made an appointment. Sorry, I just sold it to him.
That's happened to us too. That happened to us too once. Yep.
Yeah.
We were on our way down to take a look, and she called. She's like, "It's sold." I'm like, "What? I didn't know you had another appointment." She goes, "Yeah, he stopped by the road and saw the sign by the road and stopped in and bought it. It was another dealer from Sioux Falls."
Oh,
I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah. It's like, are you kidding me?
It's competitive.
Some of the scenarios are crazy.
Yeah, I missed the first part of the presentation. I had to take care of something here. So what I don't have is the name of your company.
It's
HomeSource Inc.
Yeah, HomeSource Incorporated. Sorry.
Yep.
HomeSource?
Yep, Incorporated.
Yep, Incorporated.
Okay. And where are you out of?
We have an office in Burnsville, but we live in Belle Plaine. Do you know where? Oh, that's right. Are you out of state?
Yeah, Peggy's in La Crosse.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yep.
Yep, Belle Plaine, Minnesota. Then sorry.
Yeah. So we have two lots that are open that we'd like to get filled, and then I'm remodeling this other one. So I totally agree on vendors. Oh my gosh, we had a plumber that we got, and we took really good care of him, but he got too big for us, and didn't have time for us anymore. A lot of places you call, they say, well, we don't deal with mobile homes because everything is not standard. Well, yes, it is. It's the same stove, same, electrical, furnace, all of that. So, yeah. And we do have one now, but it's an arm and a leg. Well, like Donna was saying, it's horrible. We get robbed. all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I, we had the park where we got our model at. The park owner bought the model, and then he just wanted us to sell out of it. Well, his electrician ran the wiring to the house, and I went there to, we were in there in the first summer. I'm like, why ain't the AC working? And I looked, and there's no, there was no wiring running to the AC unit. I'm like, what the hell? So I called up the manager, and he's like, yeah, we'll get him out there. He calls back and says, oh no, they won't go inside the house. I said, what?
Yeah.
That electric company would not go. They'll do everything else and charge you. He paid $3,000 to have their wiring run to that house, and they didn't even go inside and hook it up.
Yeah.
So we paid an electrician to go inside and hook it up, and
I can't even find one to go in.
Oh,
they'll do everything outside, but I cannot get an electrician to come inside the house.
And it's the same thing. I don't understand what their issue is with it, but
I don't know. A lot of them tell me once you start something, it's like a domino effect, because they're older homes, and you find this and you find that, and it causes this, and I don't know if they're just trying to get more money, or if that's actually true. But I can't get an electrician to come inside.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a family-run electrician. It's a father and a son, and I think it's two sons actually. I've only met the one, but they're really good about it. We found them. Well, we used to have Floyd, who he's been an electrician his whole life, and he would do anything. He was awesome and very, very fairly priced, but he retired this spring. He let his license lapse. He said, I'm done, and so he's in his low 70s now, and so, but we started using, he would leave during the winter. So during the winter, we'd have to use, a different electrician. Well, we found this other one and we take care of them. We try to, it's like we talked about before. You got to try to take care of the ones that you find, because.
Yeah. Oh, we did that with Plumber too. Sent him gift cards at Christmas. In first couple of years it was great, but it just I don't know. It's you got to tell them they can't retire.
That's right.
That's not allowed. You can't do that.
Well, we are approaching time for this session. I really appreciate all of the questions and the participation. I learned a lot. I thought I knew all the answers to some of these questions, but I learned a ton. So thank you so much, Donna and Butch. This is a really, really useful conversation. And hopefully we can get more partnerships for you, more parks that we can fill vacant lots and get you connected with some of our other co-ops, because I'm sure they would be interested to talk with both of you. And
put me down on the list.
We would appreciate that.
But we'll wrap it up for tonight, and hope that everyone enjoys the rest of the conference, and we'll see you on another one of the sessions perhaps. Okay. But thank you again so much, Donna and Butch. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.